My parents paid for college for all my siblings. When it came to me, they said, "We don't have anything left for you." I succeeded without them. When I became famous, they want to come back into my life and share my success. Before I share what happened next, please hit that like button and subscribe. Growing up, I always felt like an afterthought in my own family. I'm Melanie, the youngest of 4 kids, and from as far back as I can remember, I got everything last, if at all. My sister Amy is 5 years older than me, and my brothers Jake and Tyler are 7 and 8 years older. I spent my childhood wearing Amy's hand-me-downs, which wouldn't have been so bad if they weren't already second-hand from our cousin. Even when my clothes were falling apart, my parents would say, "Just make it work a little longer, Melanie." Electronics? Forget about it. By the time my siblings' old phones and laptops made their way to me, they were practically antiques. The screen on my phone had been cracked for so long, I barely noticed it anymore. "Mom, my laptop keeps shutting down in the middle of my research. Could I maybe get a new one for my birthday?" I asked one evening while we were having dinner. Dad didn't even look up from his plate. "Those things are expensive, Melanie. We just can't afford it right now." The next weekend, they bought Tyler a brand new gaming laptop because he needed it for his graphic design class. I didn't say anything. What hurt more than the hand-me-downs was how invisible I felt. Every family dinner was the same. Jake got an A on his engineering project, Amy's volleyball team is going to state, Tyler's artwork was selected for the school showcase. I'd sit there pushing food around my plate, waiting for someone to ask about my day or my interests. They never did. When parent-teacher conferences came around, Mom and Dad would make a whole production of attending for my siblings. For me, they only showed up when the school called to remind them they hadn't met with my teachers all year. What no one at home seemed to notice was that I'd found my thing. Chemistry fascinated me from the first day of freshman year. The way elements combined to create something entirely new, it was like magic, but explainable by science. I joined every competition, won ribbons and medals, stayed after school for the free chemistry club. The lab became my sanctuary. "Melanie, your solution to this problem was really innovative," Mr. Roberts, the club advisor, told me after I'd won first place in the regional science fair. "Have you thought about pursuing chemistry in college?" I had. It was all I thought about. At home, I tried to recreate experiments in my bedroom. I saved up my babysitting money to buy small kits online. Once I was working on a harmless demonstration of catalytic decomposition when Mom banged on my door. "Melanie, what is that smell? Open this door right now." I sighed and let her in. The reaction was producing a sulfur smell, but it was completely safe. "This has to stop," she said, wrinkling her nose. "The whole house stinks." "What if your dad brings clients home?" Tyler walked by my room, snickering. "Little sis is cooking meth in there. Should we call the cops?" "Shut up, Tyler," I muttered. "Don't talk to your brother that way," Mom snapped. "And clean this up. Now." That's when I started taking my experiments to Grandma Ruth's house. Unlike my parents, she was genuinely interested in what I was doing. "Tell me about this one, Melanie," she'd say, peering over my shoulder as I carefully measured solutions. Grandma's kitchen table became my lab bench. She'd sit with me for hours, asking questions, helping me document results. She was the only one who saw me. By senior year, I had a clear plan: graduate with honors, go to college for chemistry, work in a real lab someday. I'd seen how my parents had helped my siblings with tuition. They'd taken out loans, applied for grants, even dipped into their retirement savings to help Jake and Tyler. Amy got a partial sports scholarship, but my parents covered the rest. So when I sat them down after receiving my acceptance letter to state college, I wasn't prepared for their response. "College?" Dad looked genuinely confused. "I didn't think you were planning on going." "Why wouldn't I go to college?" I asked, stunned. Mom shrugged. "You've never really talked about it. We thought maybe you'd just get a job after graduation." "I've been talking about becoming a chemist since freshman year. I've won state competitions. How could you not know this?" My parents exchanged glances. "Chemistry," Mom said. "Do you even understand what that involves?" I couldn't believe what I was hearing. 4 years of competitions, medals hanging on my wall, experiments at Grandma's house every weekend. Had they really paid so little attention? "Look, Melanie," Dad said gently, like he was explaining something to a child. "We've spent a lot on your brothers and sister. College is expensive. We just don't have anything left for you." The words hit me like a physical blow. Don't have anything left for you. The story of my life distilled into 6 perfect words. I didn't cry, didn't scream. Something inside me hardened in that moment. I'd been counting on their help, but I realized I should have known better. "Fine," I said, standing up from the kitchen table. "I'll figure it out myself." And I did. I'd gotten a partial scholarship to state college based on my academic performance. It wasn't enough, but it was something. The next day, I applied for a job at the cafe near our house. The day after that, I asked Grandma if I could move in with her after graduation. The transition from high school to college wasn't easy. I packed up my belongings, not that I had much, and moved into Grandma Ruth's spare bedroom. The cafe job paid minimum wage, but every dollar went into my college fund. I worked double shifts whenever I could, coming home with aching feet and smelling like coffee grounds. Grandma never complained about having me there, even when I transformed her dining room into a makeshift study space. She'd bring me tea late at night when I was still hunched over textbooks, gently suggesting I get some rest. When fall semester began at State College, reality hit hard. While other freshmen were attending orientation parties and decorating dorm rooms, I was calculating how many hours I needed to work to afford next semester's books. The partial scholarship covered about 60% of my tuition, but that left a significant gap. After my first week of classes, I knew I needed to find additional income. The cafe wasn't going to be enough. With my course schedule in hand, I approached Professor Larson, my general chemistry instructor, after class. "Excuse me, Professor. I was wondering if there might be any work-study positions available in the department." He looked at me over his glasses. "Possibly. What's your background?" I explained my high school experience with chemistry competitions and independent projects. His expression changed from polite interest to genuine curiosity. "Come by my office tomorrow. I might have something for you." That something turned out to be 2 part-time positions, one as a lab assistant helping to prepare materials for undergraduate labs, and another shelving books in the science library. Between classes, these jobs, and occasional weekend shifts at the cafe, I barely had time to sleep. But for the first time, I felt like I was building something for myself. My apartment with Grandma became my sanctuary. She'd always leave dinner in the fridge for me to heat up when I got home, no matter how late. Sometimes I'd find little notes from her: "Don't forget to breathe, Meline," or "So proud of you." Those notes kept me going on the hardest days. Despite the exhaustion, I threw myself into my coursework. Chemistry wasn't just an interest anymore, it was my future, my way out, my proof that I was more than what my family thought of me. I studied while eating lunch, read textbooks on the bus, and practiced problems late into the night. Professor Larson noticed my dedication. He started giving me more challenging assignments and inviting me to sit in on advanced classes. One day after lab, he stopped me. "There's a student research conference coming up next semester. I think you should present a project." The idea terrified and excited me. "What kind of project?" "Something original, something that interests you." He handed me a stack of journals. "Start reading. Look for gaps, questions no one's answered yet." I spent weeks poring over research papers, scribbling ideas in notebooks. Eventually, I settled on exploring a novel catalytic approach to breaking down certain pharmaceutical compounds in wastewater, something with real-world applications that built on my strengths. The next few months became a blur of classes, work, and research. I'd come home to Grandma's apartment well after midnight, eyes burning from hours in the lab. But slowly, my project took shape. The initial results were promising, showing higher efficiency than existing methods. When I presented my findings at the Freshman Research Symposium, I was nervous but prepared. I knew my data inside and out. What I didn't expect was the reaction. "Extraordinary work for a first-year student," one professor commented. "Where did you learn these techniques?" asked another. The department chair pulled me aside afterward. "Meline, we don't often see this level of sophistication from undergraduates. Would you be interested in presenting at the regional conference next month?" I agreed immediately, though I had no idea how I'd fit more work into my already impossible schedule. Somehow I managed. The regional conference was larger, intimidating, with mainly graduate students and a few professors presenting. I was easily the youngest person there. My presentation wasn't perfect. My voice shook at first, and I fumbled a slide transition, but the content was solid. When I finished, the questions came rapid fire. I answered each one clearly, confidently, standing my ground even when challenged by a skeptical postdoc. Afterward, a woman approached me. "I'm Dr. Helena Rivera from Eastridge University." That was impressive work. Eastridge, an Ivy League school. My heart raced. "Thank you," I managed to say. "We should talk about your future plans." She handed me her card. "I'd be interested in hearing more about your research." I didn't tell my parents about any of this. They hadn't called once since I'd moved out, not even to check if I was alive. Sometimes I'd see posts on social media about family dinners or celebrations I hadn't been invited to. It stung, but less than it used to. As the first year progressed, my project expanded. Professor Larson gave me more lab time, more resources. He started introducing me to colleagues as our rising star. I wasn't used to the recognition, to being seen. When spring semester ended, I had a 4.0 GPA, a growing research portfolio, and an invitation to work in Professor Larson's lab over the summer. The dean's office notified me that I'd qualified for an additional merit scholarship for my sophomore year. Things were looking up. Then came the call that changed everything. I was cleaning glassware in the lab when my phone rang. Dr. Rivera from Eastridge. Meline, I've been following your work. We have a special transfer program for exceptional students. Full scholarship, starting as a second year. You'd be working directly with our research faculty. I told her I needed time to think. After hanging up, I sat on the lab stool, mind racing. Eastridge was the opportunity of a lifetime, a full scholarship, research with top scientists, the kind of education my siblings had received without question, that I'd been told was too expensive for me. When I told Professor Larson about the offer, I expected disappointment. Instead, he smiled broadly. You'd be a fool not to take it, Meline. This is what you've worked for. That night, I told Grandma the news over dinner. She reached across the table and squeezed my hand, eyes glistening. Your grandfather always said cream rises to the top. He'd be so proud to see you now. 2 weeks later, I accepted Eastridge's offer. As I packed my belongings yet again, I realized I hadn't mentioned any of this to my parents. They didn't know about my research, my scholarship, or my transfer. I didn't need their approval anymore. Eastridge University was everything I dreamed of and more. The campus sprawled across acres of manicured lawns and historic buildings. The chemistry department had equipment I'd only read about in journals. My apartment, subsidized by my scholarship, was small but modern, the first place that had ever been truly mine. The work was challenging. As a transfer student, I had to catch up quickly to Eastridge's rigorous standards. I spent most of my first semester buried in textbooks, determined not to waste this opportunity. My classmates came from prestigious prep schools and had parents who were doctors, lawyers, and professors. I kept my background to myself, deflecting personal questions with vague answers. The highlight of Eastridge was working with Professor Nathan Harris. He'd been nominated for the Nobel Prize twice for his groundbreaking work in catalytic chemistry. When I first walked into his lab, I was so nervous I could barely speak. You must be Meline, he said, not looking up from his microscope. Helena says you've got exceptional talent. Show me. Professor Harris was demanding but fair. He pushed me harder than anyone ever had, critiquing my techniques, questioning my assumptions, sending me back to the drawing board repeatedly. Under his guidance, my research evolved from a simple undergraduate project to something genuinely innovative. By my third year, I'd co-authored 2 papers in respected journals. I presented at conferences across the country and even at an international symposium in Berlin. Each achievement felt like a step further away from the invisible girl I'd once been. Grandma Ruth remained my only connection to my past life. We spoke weekly, and I flew her out to visit me twice a year. She proudly displayed photos of me in my lab coat on her mantle, though I made her promise not to share updates with my parents. Early in my 4th year, I received an unexpected email from the University Communications Department. A science correspondent from National Public Television wanted to feature my research in a segment about emerging scientists. The producer had read my latest paper and thought it would make compelling television. My first instinct was to decline. I'd spent years flying under the radar, focusing solely on my work. Public exposure wasn't part of my plan. But Professor Harris convinced me to reconsider. Science isn't just about labs and papers, he said. It's about inspiring the next generation. Think about the young girl watching who might see herself in you. The film crew spent 3 days following me around campus, shooting footage of me working in the lab, teaching undergraduates, and discussing my research. They interviewed Professor Harris, who called me one of the most promising young minds in chemistry today. They filmed me receiving the Hawkins Award for Young Scientists, a prestigious national honor I hadn't told anyone about except Grandma. The segment aired on a Tuesday evening. I watched it alone in my apartment, surreal as it was to see myself on national television. The correspondent described me as a rising star in chemical science who had already made significant contributions to pharmaceutical waste remediation. They showed clips of my presentations, my published papers, and testimonials from professors and peers. I turned off my phone immediately after the broadcast ended. I knew what would happen next. Sure enough, when I checked my messages the following morning, there was a text from an unknown number, my mother. Meline, we saw you on TV last night. Your father and I are so proud. We've always believed in you. Call us. We miss you so much. I stared at the message for a long time. 3 years of silence, and now they were proud. Now they missed me. I deleted the text without responding. Over the next few days, the messages multiplied. My sister Amy wrote a long email about how the family had been incomplete without me. Jake sent an awkward text congratulating me and asking if I could help his daughter with her science fair project. Tyler simply tagged me in a social media post, "This is my little sister." I ignored them all. The final straw came a week after the broadcast when I posted photos from my graduation ceremony. Grandma Ruth stood beside me, beaming as I held my diploma. Within hours, the post was flooded with comments from family members I barely remembered. "We're all so proud of you, our family genius. You're making the whole family look good." My mother's comment was the most galling. "This is what happens when you have parents who support your dreams. So proud of our baby girl." The audacity was breathtaking. I nearly threw my phone across the room. Instead, I typed a simple announcement: "Graduation celebration at my place this Saturday. It's going to be amazing." I didn't include an address. Within minutes, my phone rang. My mother. "Melanie, we're so excited about your party. What's the address? We'll need to book flights right away." I took a deep breath. "You're not invited." A pause. "What? Don't be ridiculous. We're your family." "Family? You refused to help with my education. You called me hopeless. You didn't even know what I was studying until you saw it on TV. That's not fair. We've always supported you. Everything we did was for you kids. For 3 kids, not 4. How can you say that? We made you who you are." The laugh that escaped me wasn't pleasant. "No, Mom. I made me who I am. Despite you, not because of you. This is outrageous. After everything we've done, you did nothing. And now you want to claim credit for my success? No. You don't get to show up at the finish line and pretend you ran the race." I hung up before she could respond. Then I turned off my phone again and focused on preparing for my real celebration, one with people who had actually been there for me along the way. The day of my graduation party arrived with perfect weather, sunny and warm with a gentle breeze. I'd rented a small event space with a garden view, nothing extravagant, but tasteful. Grandma Ruth arrived early to help set up, hugging me tightly when she saw the decorations. By 6 o'clock, the space was filled with friends and colleagues I'd made over the years. Professor Harris arrived with a bottle of champagne and his wife. My roommate from first year at Eastridge brought her fiancé. Even Dr. Rivera, who had first recruited me, made an appearance. There were about 20 people total, a small gathering, but genuine. These were people who knew me, not the scientist on TV, but the real Melanie. My phone had been buzzing all day with messages from family members. My siblings were apparently in an uproar over being excluded. Relatives I barely knew were weighing in on family social media, taking sides. I ignored it all. This day wasn't about them. During dinner, Professor Harris stood and tapped his glass for attention. The room quieted. "I've been teaching for over 30 years, he began. And in that time, I've had thousands of students, some brilliant, some hardworking, some creative. Rarely do you find all 3 qualities in one person." He turned to me. "Melanie is that rare combination. But what impresses me most is her resilience. Science is about failure, failing better, failing forward until suddenly you're not failing anymore. You're discovering." He raised his glass. "I'm pleased to announce that Melanie will be joining our research faculty next fall as a full-time research associate in my laboratory." The room erupted in applause. I blinked back tears as people congratulated me. A job offer from Professor Harris's lab was coveted by postdocs across the country. I'd known it was a possibility, but having it announced publicly made it real. The party was winding down when I saw Professor Harris speaking with someone at the door. He caught my eye and beckoned me over. "There's someone here to see you," he said quietly. My heart sank, expecting to see my parents or siblings. Instead, I was surprised to find my cousin Ellie, whom I hadn't seen in years. "I hope it's okay that I came," she said hesitantly. "I saw your posts online, and I just wanted to tell you in person how amazing all of this is." I hugged her, genuinely happy to see a familiar face that wasn't demanding anything from me. After the party, I returned to my apartment, exhausted but content. The next morning brought more messages, but one caught my attention from Professor Harris. "My office, 11 a.m. Important matter to discuss." When I arrived, he looked uncharacteristically uncomfortable. "Your parents came to see me this morning." My stomach dropped. "What?" "They showed up at my lab unannounced. Wanted to talk about you. Said they couldn't reach you directly." I closed my eyes, mortified. "I'm so sorry. I had no idea they would." He held up a hand. "No need to apologize. I simply told them I don't discuss my researchers with anyone without their consent." He paused. "They seemed desperate." "They're desperate for the wrong reasons," I said. 2 days later, they showed up at my workplace anyway. I was cataloging samples when the receptionist called to say I had visitors. I considered sending them away but decided it was time to face them directly. My mother looked older than I remembered, my father more subdued. They stood awkwardly in the reception area, too formally dressed for the casual research environment. Méline, Mom said, stepping forward as if to hug me. I stayed where I was. What are you doing here? Dad cleared his throat. We need to talk to you in private, if possible. I led them to a small conference room and closed the door. Say what you came to say. They exchanged glances before Mom spoke. We're having financial difficulties. The mortgage, some medical bills. Your brothers and sister are struggling too, with their own families now. And? I prompted, already knowing where this was going. You're doing so well, Dad said. That award they mentioned on TV, we looked it up. It comes with a substantial monetary prize. The audacity was almost impressive. So you've come for a handout. Not a handout, Mom objected. Family helps family. You're the successful one now. I laughed without humor. I wasn't family when I needed college tuition. I wasn't family when I was working 3 jobs to survive. I wasn't family for the 3 years you didn't call or write. That's not fair, Dad protested. No, it wasn't fair, I agreed. None of it was fair. But I'm not interested in fairness anymore. I'm interested in peace. And peace for me means a life without you in it. Mom began to cry, those familiar tears that had manipulated me as a child. How can you be so cold? We raised you. You housed me, I corrected. Grandma Ruth raised me. Professor Harris mentored me. I built myself. I stood, signaling the end of our conversation. I owe you nothing. Not money, not forgiveness, not a relationship. Please don't contact me again. I walked out, leaving them sitting there. Perhaps it was cruel, but it was honest. They hadn't come because they loved me or were proud of me. They'd come because they needed something from me. Some things never change. Today, my lab work continues to thrive. I recently put a down payment on a small house thanks to the Young Scientist Grant Program. My research has expanded into new areas with promising applications in environmental remediation. Grandma Ruth visits often. Some of my cousins have reached out, relationships I'm cautiously rebuilding on my own terms. As for my parents and siblings, I don't know how they're doing, and I don't need to know.